Parliament decided to repeal, right, or cancel all of the Townshend Acts except for the tax on tea. They kept the tax on tea. And the colonists, pretty much what they decided was that they either boycotted the tea and began to drink coffee, or they just went ahead in Massachusetts and began to purchase smuggled tea instead. And this eventually is going to lead to a new edition of the Tea Act. Parliament's going to pass a kind of a revamped Tea Act, and it's going to lead to our next major event in Boston of our pre-revolutionary events, and that, of course, is the Boston Tea Party. So Parliament decides to create a new Tea Act where the British East India Company, which was the merchants who were the owners and were in charge of bringing over the tea, they would now be able to sell the tea directly to the colonies, right? It no longer needed to go through the merchants into the stores. Now they were directly selling the tea to the colonies, which actually made the tea from the British East India Company cheaper than the smuggled tea that the colonists were buying. And this then, the colonial merchants and the smugglers feared that this would put them out of business. And so the colonists actually were angered and felt bad about the fact that now the colonial merchants were suffering because of the new Tea Act. So instead of abiding by this new law, on December 16, 1773, the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Native Americans, boarded 3 ships that were docked in Boston Harbor that had cases of tea, and they broke apart and dumped those 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. The colonists then, later on, after this incident was over, attempted to pay England for the tea in exchange for them repealing the Tea Act. However, Parliament and George III, who was king at this time, had had enough of Massachusetts, and in particular Boston, and their boycotting and their protests and their actions against the British. And so they were determined to punish Massachusetts as a colony because of everything that had been going on.